Okay, so it seems like we have a little bit of an update on this whole Neurosama competition kind of thing that we've been talking about recently. If you guys saw my video yesterday, I said I was going to do a little bit of looking into exactly what this is, how it works, and what is going on with this new project which is going on, which could, you know, kind of compete with Neurosama, apparently. Now, a lot of Neurosama fans obviously have been commenting, have been kind of responding to a lot of this, because there seems to be a lot of posts currently glazing the hell out of it, including a lot of these ones, which obviously crypto, like AI accounts. I feel like a lot of these accounts are very heavily pushing for AI stuff. Now, of course, you know, of course they are, because this is an AI, another AI project, right? But I do think it is pretty interesting, right? Because obviously someone says someone open sourced their own Neurosama. It plays games with you, chats on Discord, remembers you between sessions, and runs fully locally with no API calls, sorry. A digital being that lives on your screen, fully yours, 100% open source. Now, again, it is a pretty interesting kind of topic, because, you know, many people, as I said, if you watch Neurosama, lots of people are probably watching them thinking, damn, I wish I had my own one of that. But of course, you know, Vedal has managed to make one because of his skills in coding and all of that kind of stuff. And in terms of like managing to build her up to where she is today, right? And I think it is much harder for the average person to kind of access something like Neurosama, right? So it seems like a company out there, or not a company, but a person out there has made a version that is essentially, yeah, you know, a more, I guess, user-friendly version and a user-accessible version. And I found it very interesting, because I was going into the descriptions and how they were kind of phrasing this, and it seems like they are specifically going for Neurosama, which I think is crazy, right? Now, obviously, Kenny as well responded to this by saying, just a friendly reminder that Mario Narful is a well-documented crypto bro known for committing scams and frauds. A video is below, and they put a little, you know, YouTube video there, which again is pretty insane, right? But there's been many other accounts, of course, especially over in Japan, with GameSpark here saying, can we create an AI for friends to play games with? The open source AI companion, Airi, that can play Minecraft and Factorio 2 is amazing. And obviously we covered this post yesterday of someone going through the features of it. And yeah, it can join games, it can join Discord calls, it can do essentially the same things that Neurosama can, maybe on a little bit more of a limited scale. I feel like Neurosama is definitely improving every single day, especially with stuff like the 3D debut and etc. But we actually have a little bit of a hands-on look at exactly what Airi is. Now, this is the program. This is the website that it runs on. If you want to try it, it says you can. Now, this runs through locally, I'm pretty sure, on your computer, and essentially it is, yeah, literally run on a website. Now, again, I don't know if there's any way you can kind of, you know, make this a program on your computer instead, rather than it running on this web page. But I do think it's going to be very interesting to do a little bit more looking at it further. But essentially what they do is at the very start, obviously I don't know if I can show you right now because I clicked off it, but they essentially show you a kind of list of different AI models and stuff that you can use. And even here, you can go to settings, you can choose different models. For example, they use the old Neurosama model, the one that was the default on VTube Studio. Obviously, she didn't own it. It was just a, yeah, the VTube Studio default one. You can actually, I'm pretty sure, put your own models and stuff in there, which I think is pretty interesting, right? And obviously, it seems like there is a lot of customization whenever it comes to this, which I found very, very interesting. But again, it seems like they're very much so going for the whole Neurosama vibe thing here. And well, at the very start, whenever you load up this website, they actually ask you what model you want to use. Like you can use, you know, Google Gemini, you can use ChatGPT, you can use a ton of different kind of you know, popular AI chat tools to essentially run this off. Now, obviously, if I was to like type something in here right now, it obviously says you cannot use it because it hasn't found a core system. But they essentially ask you to put in some kind of ID from the Gemini, from Gemini or from ChatGPT or whatever, so that they can access that from your computer, and then you can then run it off of that, right? But again, you know, I haven't added any here. I was just loading up the website to show you exactly what it looks like, right? And yeah, they've been using the old Neuro model, which I do think is interesting, because whenever you look further into stuff like the GitHub page, which is what people have been kind of drawn to, the Project Airi page, where they have a ton of plugins as well for to be, you know, kind of playing stuff on here as well. And again, it is interesting. They have a lot of pages here, right? And they essentially have in the first line of their description, which I think is also very interesting, we wish a better virtual humanoid could live with us. Here we are aiming to build a character interactive system like the one that powers up the famous AI VTuber Neurosama. They literally mention Neurosama, and I'm pretty sure they link, yeah, Neurosama's channel, which I think is crazy, right? I don't even, does this even link to the correct, does it just link to nowhere? Did they get the link wrong? I think they did. Anyways, but yeah, essentially that is, you know, a thing that has come up, and there's also a whole page for it, which again, I definitely want to like look into it further and actually use it fully, because I haven't actually used the kind of Gemini features on it. But again, they also put it in their Twitter kind of bio here. Self-hosted, you owned Grok Companion, a container of souls of waifu cyber livings to bring them into our world. That kind of is that AI generated? They're saying wishing to achieve Neurosama's altitude. So like they're literally mentioning Neurosama by name here, which I think is pretty crazy, right? If you think about it, because you know, if it is like one of these things where they're just like, oh, it's another AI companion VTuber, whatever, sure, whatever. But they're literally saying like, hey, we want to be like Neurosama. Like, this is why we made it, because of Neurosama. Like, they're literally mentioning her by name in all of these kind of like descriptions and whatever. And they're making it very, very clear that this is inspired by her and inspired by, you know, what Vedal is doing, which I think is very interesting, right? And I wonder if this is, yeah, I don't know, because again, obviously as well, the default model that they use on this webpage is the Neurosama model, which I do think is pretty interesting too. Now, obviously, as I said, this is the VTube Studio model. This isn't owned by Neurosama, so anybody can use it. So if anybody tries to like say, oh, you know, this could be copyright or whatever, it's not, because it's a publicly used model. That's how Neurosama got started, right? It's the new model that obviously Annie made, which is obviously based off of this model, which you know, I'm pretty sure that can be copyrighted, because again, it's a completely different model, like it's different art style and whatever. But again, just to kind of make that clear, right? But it is interesting, right? Because it seems like this company is very, or a company or person or whoever's behind it. I'm not even saying it's a company, but again, it seems that whoever is behind it is very clearly inspired by Neurosama and is very clearly wanting to have some kind of connection or trying to build this based off of her, which I do think obviously is pretty interesting for a lot of people to look at, right? Now, of course, there's been some people arguing, especially on some of the posts and like the quote retweets and stuff like this, saying like, oh, Neurosama is better or whatever, which I do think is interesting. But obviously, yeah, a lot of people saying PC and Android bros are getting open source Neurosama before we get Annie. X is asleep at the wheel with their companion projects. Elon, do something. People saying, and the guy that said that it needs a full operative PC master race to run a whole live 2D VTube Studio open air camera control 4K to run it. Which, yeah, obviously is pretty interesting. Said, oh my god, she can even play Factorio. It's so over for turbo artists. You know, obviously you got fucking Bonsai Buddy there as well, which is like the promise of Bonsai Buddy is finally revealed. Which I do think is pretty funny, considering if you guys know what Bonsai Buddy is. You know, some people have been, yeah, saying stuff like this. Neuro at least has a soul and is not a boring AI companion, which again, some people, you know, have kind of brought up as well. I don't think at the end of the day, this is going to necessarily replace Neurosama, as some people have been speculating or been trying to say, because Neurosama, as I said, has this kind of human element to it, where essentially Vedal has worked on it. She's collaborated with a lot of VTubers in the space, and I think there is a complete difference between this and you know, Airi, because I feel like Airi has more of a, I don't know how to describe it. It's more of like a chatbot, right? It's more of a chatbot that is more private, and although you could stream with it, I feel like someone using this to stream, it just wouldn't get the same kind of popularity or the same kind of, what do you call it? I don't know how to describe it. Like, the same kind of traction Neurosama has gotten, because again, you know, you got the hard work behind that Vedal has done and shown a lot of times on stream, right? Which I think people care about much more than somebody obviously trying to essentially slop out a VTuber, you know, because they have access to Project Airi. But again, I do think it is an interesting one for like an AI companion or whatever. As I said before in the last video, it is a little bit worrying that this is becoming more of a thing now, and that people can actually access this kind of thing. And what does it say for like loneliness and in total, and you know, people starting to use stuff like this as like a replacement for a friend. I think that's going to be very, very sad to see in the future, as it seems like it's already becoming a thing. But again, it does seem like a lot of people have been behind this, and a lot of the comments in the last video seem to be pretty positive about it. A lot of people are saying, let's see, you know, and obviously, you know, the old saying is, you know, competition just kind of, you know, breeds growth, right? It means that obviously with Airi getting better, surely Neuro will get better as well. And I think that obviously it will mean that both of them will get pretty big, right? But again, we'll have to see how this grows, how people use it, and whether people use it on streams or not, because currently it seems like this is more of a like a private thing that people are just using you know, with themselves, or just trying it out. And again, as I said, I will try and, you know, I'll sit down and, you know, figure out how it works and whatever, especially locally on a computer, because again, I do think it will be interesting to see exactly what actually goes on behind the scenes with this, and how this can really you know, change things. I don't know if it will, but we'll have to see, right? But yeah, I mean, that's essentially all there is. I just kind of wanted to give some extra context behind that, because I did think it was interesting that they do mention Neurosama in pretty much every single facet of their description. Which again, obviously, I'm sure that is partially as well to do with trying to, I guess, latch on to the hype of Neurosama. Neurosama has gotten so much attention, right? And of course, there's going to be people that are going to try and create similar things that, you know, adding Neurosama into the description or title or whatever is, of course, going to bring people over, because, you know, it's hyped, right? And people are interested in this kind of stuff, especially if you attach their name to it, which I think is also another factor. But yeah, I mean, that's about all I got for this video. If you guys did enjoy it, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Also, go to GameSubs, use my code Kaza, get 10% off. Again, they've got a ton of really cool stuff over there. Definitely recommend checking it out. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. That's all. So yeah.